We'll call the meeting to order. We could just take a moment of silence to contemplate our issues for tonight. Jessica, you want to do the roll call?
I'll do that.
Okay.
Mayor Sean Reardon. City Council President Ed Cameron. James Connolly,
Here,
Karen Cullinan. Kristen Donahue.
Here.
Gary Gorski,
here,
Christian Hansen,
here.
Sarah Holden,
Here.
Caroline McCarthy.
Here.
Stephen Moore,
Here.
Sarah Spalding,
Here.
Madeline Whitten.
So I guess we, time for a public comment. It's open to the public. If anyone wants to comment, we request that you limit your comments to 2 minutes and reflect basically what's on the agenda, so we don't go astray in other items. But I don't know if anyone wants to comment or not. Public.
If anyone is online, could you raise your hand? You can click on the icon at the bottom to indicate that you are raising your hand, and I will unmute you.
In 1995, two friends set out to make wireless coverage accessible to all. With no long-term contracts, nationwide coverage, and 100% US-based customer support.
Do you understand that?
I could not, so I'm going to mute that. Marge, we seem to be getting some feedback from another device, so if you could turn that off. And then I will unmute you so that we're.
Democracy and peace. More information at carnegie.org. And with the
I'm going to
ongoing
mute
support
you
of
again.
individuals and institutions.
Marge, if you can hear me. Please turn off all devices. I'm going to try one more time and then I will remove you. I've requested an unmute, but we're not getting any response.
Well, are there any other comments from anyone like to be heard? I think for Zoom, sometimes it's helpful
Wait,
to
I
test the
think-
microphones in advance.
It's our microphone's fine. It's hers.
No, I'm just saying,
Oh.
you know, if they're at a computer and they don't do
Oh.
Zoom, that could, normally gives you a chance to try it in advance. Make sure it's working correctly.
Sorry about that.
So is Betty's phone coming on? Is that what it looks like up there?
It looks like that when you're joining.
Oh, just joining.
Yeah,
Oh, not commenting.
yeah.
So does anyone have any comments from the public? If so, please let us know, and because otherwise we're gonna be muted after we end the public comment part. So this is your opportunity to speak if you'd like to be heard about something. So Jessica, no one, I guess, wants to be heard, is that right?
No one has indicated. Let me double check the chat.
Okay,
Nothing.
all right. In that case, I guess we'll conclude the public comment part. Nobody here wants to speak at all, right? Let me think. Okay. The next question would be approval of the previous minutes. Someone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes, Gary submitted his edits and I've I reviewed and there was one slight change where we're going to be, including in those present, as the role of recording secretary, Jessica Atherton. Other than that, all of the edits were, accepted and reasonable.
So can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Everybody in favor? Anybody opposed?
I abstain.
Okay,
Yeah, I wasn't here either, so let's see.
all right. So I guess the next meeting date will be March 19th.
Yes, meeting date was March 19th.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I guess we're gonna discuss the issue on the security cameras in the library.
I was hoping that Counselor Ed Cameron would be here. I have nothing further.
I saw him last night. He said he could not come tonight.
Yes, he did mention that to me, unfortunately, so I have nothing further to add on that old business.
Okay. And then under new business, archives. 1 year later.
Yes. I'd like to bring up a guest presenter, Dana Eckelberger, Senior Librarian for Archival Services. My screensaver. Thank you, Microsoft.
All right. So I just want to start by, is it okay if I start?
Yes, I hit the wrong one. What am I trying to do? I want the, with no notes.
Okay, cool, perfect, okay. Want to make sure the
Okay,
clicker
there
works.
we go.
Okay. I just wanted to start by thanking, those who did come last year to receive a tour of the archives, in addition to the tour of the rest of the library. I welcome you to come back if you ever had any questions after tonight about the presentation or about any of the information that I'm giving you. Please come back and visit me. So let me just start by really stressing the mission of the Newburyport Public Library Archival Center. It is to collect, preserve, provide access to, and interpret historical, genealogical, cultural material relating to the city of Newburyport and the immediate surrounding area. So what does the immediate surrounding area mean? Well, I define that as the towns that are abutting Newburyport. So you have Salisbury, West Newbury, you have Newbury, you have Amesbury to an extent. They have their own archives, and so they're managing their own collection. As much as we want to be, we are not at the New England Archival Center. We are Newburyport. We specialize in Newburyport. We collect material about Newburyport to celebrate this expansive history of this amazing city. So when I took over last year, this month, I noticed two problems already that I really wanted to address that I focused this entire year in doing. One was to get the reading room organized and to address the incredible backlog of unprocessed materials. So as for the reading room, there used to be like a New England section, a Massachusetts section, an Essex County section, and within those sections were material like architecture that was in New England and Massachusetts and Essex County. So researchers would have to go to 3 different areas in the room to be able to find information or books on architecture. So those of you that toured the archives last year got a glimpse of the backlog of the unprocessed materials that we were working with, that I'm going through very slowly and surely. Such a backlog has been years in the making, so it's taking time and thoughtful decisions to figure out what is a collection, what can be interfiled within an existing collection, and if possible, of course, and materials that will not be considered from an actual collection, but then still need to be preserved properly, and made accessible to the public. I estimate right now, and I could be mistaken, that we have about a few dozen full collections of that are unprocessed right now. That were in a state of pre-processing by, a former volunteer or has not been addressed yet. And within each of those little collections could be hundreds of materials within those collections. But that is not taking into account the boxes and bins of items on the wire shelving units in that back office that you all seen, that I haven't had the opportunity to assess. So in addition to those boxes of bins of documents, there are also dozens of artifacts that I am aware of, and I know that I'll come across while I'm going through. And materials that are not accounted for and need to be preserved and properly added to the library's collection. So that's my job, that's what I'm doing, any chance that I can. But these are not problems that have sprung up overnight, but have taken years to accumulate. And so it's going to take time to go through them. So, priority 1 was cataloging. Staff were trained to navigate the reading room, but finding materials turned out to be a challenge. I had received reports that they were, they're struggling. Like when I was in reference, the head of reference, I would go down and help because I had the knowledge needed in the absence of my predecessor to be able to help them locate materials. They were given in training aids that were a little outdated because materials moved, and if like the spreadsheet that they had to use, if there were any changes, if an item was moved, sometimes we're human, it wasn't updated, so there wasn't an accurate indication of where those items were living, hence the inability for the staff to find them. So I recruited the head of technical services and reference staff to help me recatalog the entire room. So that was priority 1. While that was also happening, I was identifying unprocessed collections so I can further preserve them, get them processed, make them available to the public. So, addressing the reading room. I began addressing the reading room, the organization of the reading room, by putting myself in the shoes of a researcher that's coming in for the first time, asking myself, how easy would it be for me to locate the materials if I'm just browsing? So within that context and frame of mind, I started implementing reorganization. So, reframing the room to be as accessible as possible for researchers while staying consistent with the rest of the library's collection. We recataloged by fixing old records, adding uncatalogued materials to the catalog, of course, and moving primary source materials that were in the reading room into the archival storage for better preservation and safekeeping. And then once that we were done with that, we started to retrain staff on the simplified organization of the room. So this is what it looked like before. So the archives was manageable, but for those who spent the most time down there, each wall of bookshelves had like a dozen or so different sections, only identified by a yellow label, which I because I like show and tell. So these sections were identified by a label that was stuck on the shelves. And while this, it's bright, it is a nightmare for those who may have, vision impairments. And the library is making a concerted effort to become more accessible to everybody. And on the more practical side, of course, the sections overlapped with one another. I discussed that before with the architecture, for instance. And would force a researcher to go from one section or one area of the room to the other, to another, to get exactly what they're looking for their research. And that's not accounting for the many items that were on the shelf but were not properly in the catalog. So they were not properly visible for all intents and purposes, unless you were in that space and accessing it from the shelf. Right. This is after. So we have a new general section on the slide to your left, right here. And beyond the archives door along the wall here too. And that's the wall. And what it really is designed for, it is, excuse me, so it's really designed to complement what we have in the Newbury material. So if a student is working on the Toll silversmithing factory or silversmith factory, they will find materials in my general section about silversmithing to further enhance their research. They are these specific sections, which we have here in this slide right here, are easily identifiable by these very noticeable shelf dividers. So it identifies important sections. I really wanted to think about how, some of the more easily, like, if someone's coming here to do house history research, where they can go and find the material, which is right here. So if they're looking for like any of the house history research right here, they're also right here too. And it's identified right here. So it's really calling out a particular section that they would be interested in. And then putting myself in the footsteps of a student who might be interested, I wanted it to be more interactive. So we have these little call outs. Right here. Which really call attention to specific things like the Great Migration and what exactly the Great Migration is. Little tidbits about the Newburyport Public Library, of course, a little shout out to our genealogical databases, and of course, how to access the digital newspapers, for instance. So it's become a little bit more interactive for those who have never been in this piece before. And then, of course, a closer look, because the picture I didn't recognize in the slide before wasn't really 3D, so I wanted to bring this as well. So it really stands out. It really calls attention, draws the eye of researchers to specific sections. And we also have local callouts, such as the local author section, our biographies and diaries. I wanted the space to be interactive and really quickly educate researchers on well-known subjects such as the Great Migration, all the way down to local figures like Jane P. Marquand to complement our large Marquand section, and George Whitfield. So by the numbers, noting for the fact that statistic collection was sporadic at best in the early stages of the project, we were still looking at over 3,300 items in the reading room whose records have been adjusted and fixed. Call number change usually meant that staff were not only changing the actual call number, the way you would find on the spine of the book, for instance, but fixing minor errors on a record, such as the audience, the bibliographic record itself, etc. But virtually every single book, magazine, and photocopied pamphlet in the reading room has been touched throughout the course of the project. So that brings us to the results. I am so pleased to announce that recataloging the entire reading room was completed in November. This would not have been possible if it wasn't for the help of the head of technical services and reference staff who listened to my ideas and direction, often having to change call numbers and spine labels because I wasn't happy with the original decision. This project started in May of 2024, but really picked up in speed in June and July. They addressed all but 2 shelves worth of materials that required proper handling and preservation. So this was huge. So that's why I quantify with 99% of the collection of the reading room had been recatalogued and or had their records fixed. So why 99%? This is an example of the 1% of items that I've come across in my travels in the reading room. So these box up here that I kind of highlighted in red, it's not really good on the screen. But in those boxes, I found folded up newspapers stored in them. They were labeled folders. So on the surface, it looked like a collection was completed right here, if you can see it there. But the newspaper, it was improperly housed. Newspapers are incredibly acidic, and having them folded up in the way that they were would only further break down over time. So I ended up removing them from their boxes. I flattened them out, I interfiled them with tissue paper, and to further preserve them, and now they live in a nice box that is that's big enough to accommodate them. And then I was able to catalog the collection, and now it is alive and ready for anyone to use. But right here in this picture on the top left corner, you'll see these binders. That's what's left of what I need to address in the reading room. They are materials that are in binders, which is great on the surface. However, because they are not meant to stand up straight, they're leaning over, even with using a bookend to help keep them standing. But the process of them leaning over time is making the pages inside the binders warp. So I need to take them out of the binders, and I need to figure out how to preserve them, have the materials needed to do that. So I will be addressing that momentarily. So yeah, we want to take care of those curling edges. So while the cataloging project was in process, I worked to create a cataloging manual, as you see here, to ensure the consistency in the way records are created and maintained going forward. 7 years ago, when I was in the archives, I worked on a similar manual. I just only expanded on it. But this manual here it contains more information on how to catalog original material and primary source materials and collections, labeling books and materials, and even in the process of reordering books in the case that I'm not here. I wasn't able to accomplish this task alone. I recruited Sia, whose expertise has not only enhanced my manual with in-depth direction on how to catalog some of the most unique materials. Thanks to his help, there are now 2 sections within it on how to catalog maps, for instance, which have a lot of them, and facsimiles or reproductions. So processing a collection is the core responsibility of what an archivist, really does, or a special collections librarian. This is a really nitty-gritty way of describing what I do. We take a box, a milk crate, a rubber bin of donated materials, we preserve them, rearrange them within the context and intent of the collection, and we create a finding aid, or a key to the collection. Afterwards, the collection itself is cataloged and considered available for the public. This process from start to finish, from bin to a nice little box like this, takes it ranges anywhere from a week to about 4 weeks, depending on the size of the collection. And of course, helping researchers while I'm doing that. Organizational records such as the Garden Club, for instance, contains boxes of materials, which is going to take longer to process. I already expect that. And we touch every single item within a collection and make decisions on the best way to preserve them, arrange them, and describe them. So instead of a collection being touched for 3 hours once a week, not accounting for library closures or absences, I was able to dedicate time every single day to get a collection processed, working in between helping the catalogers with their questions and researchers coming in for help. And by December, I was able to make substantial progress, highlighted by the clear. So this is what I got. Yeah, so the progress, this was November 2023. And this is December. And so the progress that you can see here is like every single post-it note that you see here represents an unprocessed collection that hasn't been either was in the process of being touched by a former volunteer or just simply identified. So I was able to take all of this and do this. Every single white label represents a collection that's 100% done, is available to the public. And then what you see right here, there are 2 collections, like this one right here and this one right here. They're going to serve as training collections for staff, to establish those best practices moving forward. It is important for me that staff have a hand in processing collections, as many of them have had archival training, and no department should be a single staff show, especially when you account for the head of that department, to be on vacation, or in my case, on leave soon. Cataloging the reading room took a team of staff to accomplish. And I believe the same principles should be applying to processing our very unique collections. So since February, I have 22 new collections have been processed and are made available to the public via the catalog and the collections page on the Archival Center section of the website. With that, which is a huge accomplishment, I love it. So with that being said, what's next? With the reading room under control, my attention will be shifting towards our compact storage room, or the archival storage is what we technically use. It is perhaps the most complex room in the archives because we have to juggle two factors, the collections and their very unique, complicated needs. Books whose conditions are too unstable to be in the reading room, and space. The compact storage room presents another unique challenge, and it's the room and the way that it's made itself. It's the room where you spin the thing and the shelves move. And it's designed amazing to provide extra storage space in a fixed area. But the problem is it's having a unintended consequence on our collections. So for a box like this, sitting on shallow shelves like this, which is meant for books, of course, but as the shelves move back and forth, it's squishing these boxes. And so the materials within these boxes are becoming compromised. The integrity of the box itself is becoming compromised as these shelves are moving back and forth. And then of course the space itself, virtually every archive and special collections in the world, we all wish we had more space. It's just how it is. I'm working with Kevin to make decisions that fall within our collections management policy for materials that do not necessarily align with the scope of the room, simply because I cannot make space out of nowhere. I have a fixed amount of square footage and I have to make the best of it. And we have tens of thousands of items that we are storing and preserving down there. There is a plan to organize the space, but it will take time and thoughtful decisions to get it to a workable and, most importantly, a findable room without further intentional damage, just by using those wheels. So that's really what I'm going to be shifting my focus to next. And then on the more practical side, the professional development side, I'm a true believer of constantly sharpening your skills. I'm a learner. I want to learn. I want to learn more. So I'll be taking every opportunity I can to keep getting better in the field by visiting other archives and special collections to learn what they are doing, how they're managing their collections and researchers that are coming into their space, and how I can improve myself in the collection I'm managing. Any questions?
Fantastic. Great presentation.
Yes, please come down if you ever have any more questions or need further clarification. I always love visitors.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you buy compact shelving that's deeper and replace it? I mean, honestly.
That would be great. Lovely. I wish, that is certainly, an
Cause that seems
idea.
like a pretty reasonable, I mean, that's the boxes you use.
Yes, and I mean, this is the legal size, there is a letter size, but I wanted to bring at least an example of an oversized one that doesn't really, fit the width of a book, for
Yeah.
instance, when it's sitting on the shelf. We also have bulk file boxes, or they kind of look like milk crates, they're the size of a milk crate, they're pretty big. And then
And these are pretty expensive. I mean, everything's
Yes,
expensive. right?
exactly.
Yeah.
They like to get money out of us. And I love to shop on sales, but even then, it is not easy and definitely not cheap. And the friends have been so amazing to be able to help me purchase materials to take care of these collections. So I rely on their generosity really to purchase this. But it's being very thoughtful in the budget I have, once a year, because an order can very much easily be $2,200, even with the sale. And I am a sucker for sales. That's the only way to make it work. But yes, the dream would be like, oh yeah, we could get better compact shelving that is wider, or to accommodate some of these weird shaped items. That is the dream, but I am utilizing that back storage area with the picture with the, you know, the before and after.
Yeah.
To kind of take care of some of these bigger boxes. Again, that space is finite as well, so there's only so much that I can work with in those rooms. So it's all about being creative, really. But I look forward to it. It's like it's a game of Tetris, really. Yeah.
So is it possible to get wider shelving to replace some of the narrow shelving that you have? So you don't have the switching of the boxes?
So there is a way that you could, so I could take a bay and I could take out the metal divider that separates one side from another. That would mean that both sides of that bay is taken, and so I'm losing the ability to have one side and the other regardless. That is a possibility as I look into reorganizing that space. Being a little bit more mindful, like maybe like one side will have those oversized materials just for that purpose, knowing that it will take up that much space. I wish it was possible to just make them deeper. But yeah.
I think that the 3D indicators are great and then that they're movable as well.
Yeah.
And if you have the labels on the shelves, scrape those off and move around. So I think that as your collections grow,
Yes.
it's an easy way to do it. I'm curious for people who've come in here before and trying to find materials, if there's been any kind of response from the public who've come to do research and there's kind of a before and after of like, this is so much easier to see because I can kind of see these 3D indicators, or
Yeah.
I'm curious what the response is.
So that's a great question. Some of the returning researchers that have come in who have seen the changes, you know, once they're like, where are the city directories? And I show them exactly where they are and they notice these, they do have like, you know, they're like, oh, that's where they are, you know, so I consider it a positive response on that regard, with just those visual call outs. But I'm always curious to know more.
Sure. And there's been new collections that have been created, right?
Yes.
And so has there been a response to that of like, I didn't know that there was even these types of materials around the subject, or?
So when I especially, so the local authors lived in the compact storage room, right? So all those books were there and I brought those out because I wanted to get them the most exposure. And we had a number of positive feedback of researchers that have come in and they have seen that we've had those and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that you had this and this. Which is even great for us because as we acquired the David McPhail collection recently, we had a small collection of his books. So it is just kind of a serendipitous type of weird way of making people excited of what we have that they can easily access. Because the reading room really is the only patron forward-facing room. So we want to be able to make that first impression for those who have, you know, never been here, and stay true to what we're doing downstairs.
First of all, thank you for all the work taking on the project. Could you talk about how you decide to remove items from the collection? I'm assuming that with the space limitations, that's something.
So yeah, space limitation is a big one. Again, like I said, we really are focused on preserving materials that relate to Newburyport and the surrounding communities. So, you know, I wish we had the ability to keep New Hampshire materials or Maine materials or Rhode Island materials, but we simply do not have the space needed to A, make sure that the backlog of materials gets taken care of and brought forth, and B, like stay true to this mission. Like, we need to really focus on Newburyport. Yeah. If we had offsite storage, of course, that's a huge thing. But you know, the Phillips Library in Raleigh, like they have that big warehouse, like they have that big building. You know, their ability to expand is a little bit easier than us. We are in a fixed space, really, so we have to focus on that. Oh, yeah. That's fine. But yeah, great question.
How many people would you say come in on a given day
It's quiet. So I would say like one or two, and weirdly enough, and great, it's really great. I've had students come in who have come to use the space for doing their homework. Which was a complete surprise to me, but I love it. It's nice to have the kiddos down there because they're not only doing their homework, they're interacting with the materials that we have in the reading room. And so they're asking questions and, you know, I'm hoping that by asking those questions, they're getting a little interested in, you know, Newburyport history. So while they're working on their long division, they can also get a little bit of Newburyport history there. Yes.
Any other questions for Dana? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I guess we're gonna add some text to the strategic plan.
Yes, it was brought to our attention, that, we had provided information on the website when you followed a specific path by going to the main page and then going to the policies and strategic plan page and then clicking on strategic plan, it would indicate that if you wanted to see the full appendices, click on the following link. Feedback we discussed, we got indicated that if you did a search on the website for strategic plan, it would bring you right to the plan. And although we had the information one level above, it was not actually on the plan itself. The previous plan indicated if you would like to, I'll paraphrase, if you would like to see the full appendices, please contact the head librarian. Well, in the age of, websites and technology, we've actually made the appendices available on the library board of directors page. Actually, it's the full plan with appendices that you can just click on the link and you have the entire plan with the appendices. What we did on the library's webpage, because we don't have the same level of storage as the city website, we just included the plan up to the appendices page. So on that page, I am asking that you will allow me to essentially put to view the full FY 2026 through 2029 strategic plan with appendices, visit, and then the website, the web address of the page where the full plan exists. So they could either copy and paste it, or actually, they would have to copy and paste it in order to get it to go there. But it would, and I could modify that to say that the library board of directors page on the city website and put the web address.
So do you think you need a motion for that, or are you all set?
Actually, it's a document that you've approved, so I do need your approval to augment it.
Is there a motion to approve the augmentation?
So moved.
Second? I'll second. Everybody in favor? Anybody opposed? Okay,
Okay, all right, I will make that change and update the PDF that we have on the website to include that information, and I realize that I will put the actual library board of directors page on the city website, that phrasing in there as well, just to make sure that it is clear.
then we have a request for a loan of a painting.
Yes. I've started having, kept reaching out and I got wind through the, through the rumor mill, so to speak, that there was going to be some planning on the American Revolution. And between the two major cultural institutions in Newburyport, historical, the Museum of Old Newbury and the Customs House Maritime Museum. So I sent a kind of an email indicating that we'd be happy to participate, collaborate, and love to meet with them to look at the possibilities, sharing resources, etc. So I've had a meeting with James Russell, and we're in the director's room, and he's looking around the room, and he says, well, furniture, no, but he points to the portrait of Nathaniel Tracy and goes, that would be fabulous, because yes, we have a print, but to have the original painting on display in their American Revolutionary War I guess they call it Road to Revolution exhibit. Having a print, having the original is something else. So what I did was just to make sure, we had the proper procedure. I contacted Ethan Manning. Ethan indicated that as long as there was proper insurance and Newburyport was properly named as an insurer, that from the city's perspective, this, the city property would be protected. And so I asked James Russell to put together a formal request for loan, because the board has to approve any loans of, we would consider this archival material because it is historically important. So I sent the letter to you with his request. And I think one of the things that really kind of puts it home. I mean, he as an executive director of a museum, he knows what he needs to prepare and do and make sure that the painting is properly preserved. It's not going to be in direct sunlight, and then we're going to have all the proper insurances. But he looked at the opportunity as a watershed collaborative moment. He really truly believes that this is an opportunity to move forward for a collaborative effort on the library and the Customs House Maritime Museum is a watershed collaborative moment to help move the two institutions forward in the future to do more collaborative efforts. And so I looked at that and I recognized that, and I truly believe that as people see our collaborative effort and the library truly contributing to in a major way to their exhibit, people will see that the collaborative nature of our relationship. And I think it's important for the city to see. It's important for visitors to the city to see, because it will be clearly marked that this is property of the Newburyport Public Library. Not only is it an explanation of who Nathaniel Tracy is or was, and his importance to the Newburyport's involvement in the road to the American Revolution, but it's also the Newburyport Public Library. They have other things, and questions are asked, and there's again, the relationships are re-strengthened, the bridges are rebuilt, and we're able to again move forward. So I encourage you to accept Mr. Russell's proposal. He is ready to prepare the proper insurance paperwork, and I truly believe that this is a great opportunity.
Is there precedence for it? Has this happened before, and what's been the process before?
I think it came up once before. I think it was a painting years and years ago. And I don't remember what we did.
I
I think we approved, right? I think we just had to make sure that there were all the safety precautions were in place.
Yeah, my concern with this, and I don't know if he mentioned it in his letter, was the proper moving of it from here to there.
Yes.
And the creating of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
he's not gonna come over here, put it. in the
Oh,
back
no,
of his
no,
car,
no,
you know.
Yeah, no, we're going to make sure that the proper process to create it, move it, and install it is going to be followed. And he has such a great wealth of knowledge of, museums and moving of materials. This is, this isn't his first rodeo, so I'm
Who's gonna pay for that?
actually.
Person who charges for tickets
he-
for the
well,
public library.
No, the moving is all on Customs House.
Okay, great.
The Customs House actually got money to do this display. So, this is, they're going to be paying for all of the transportation, the installation, and then the transportation back,
How long will it be there, Kevin?
about 7 months.
I think it's so rare that anybody goes into the director's room anyway, so that to have this portrait
Yes.
on display, I think that's.
It's great, yes. I agree.
As long as you double check it, the way in which it's being moved.
Yes,
Nothing
oh, believe me,
insurance is
I'm
free.
not gonna be
It's not
sticking
free.
this in the back of my wife's CX-5. No, this is not how it's done. There will be there will be proper protocols and procedures followed, and we'll be working very closely with Mr. Russell in this process. So
Just a word of caution. The grant that they asked for to pay for the service, they did not get the full amount. That, sure, how many tens of thousands less than once. You might have budgetary issues.
well, before anything is moved, we'll make sure that everything is in place and proper procedures are followed.
So is there a motion to grant that proposal? Anybody?
I would just make make sure that there's an addendum that, with proper procedures and protocols in place. Whatever you move.
I was just wondering if you have someone on your side to like, I mean, do you know, I guess there's someone, he's from the custom house. So he
Yes.
knows all that, and is there someone, who can support?
Uh,
From your side?
Well, I'll have to check to see with city administration if there is someone.
Yeah,
Other than that, I would also rely on, Dana's preservation expertise.
yeah,
But I will check to see if there are standard, I'll have Dana check into standard movement protocols for work of this nature.
So I guess the motion was made. Is there a second for that?
Who motion? Oh, Steve, Lee.
Second?
Kristen's.
Yeah, everybody in favor? Anybody opposed?
And we'll begin working with Mr. Russell on the process of getting this in place. Okay.
And we all should have received an email from Walt Thompson concerns about the way in which acquisitions and deaccessions are made from withdrawals from the library. Kevin, maybe you could just start off by telling us how that works currently.
Sure, actually, what I'd like to do is I will get into that, but first I want to talk about I'm going to go the way in which the collection development policy is written. That was approved by the board. The first talks about responsibility for collection development. Essentially, the Library Board of Directors reviews and approves the collection development policy. Responsibility for implement the policy is delegated to the head librarian, who develops selection and acquisition procedures and assigns staff to make purchasing decisions subject to approval. The head librarian manages and allocates the materials budget annually. That is what is stated in the policy that you approved. Now, this is standard. This is not unusual. I asked Jessica to contact over 40 libraries in the geographic area. 36 of them responded. All 36 libraries indicated that the boards of trustees / or directors neither approve the purchase of materials for the collection nor the withdrawal of items from their collection. We also had a consultation with the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. The consultant that we had the session with I'll begin with her quote. "This is not how a library operates." And I will elaborate. No library in the state engages in this practice. There is no standard nor best practice for the board to get reports of items that have been purchased or discarded. The board is entrusted, again, these are what I'm telling you now are points that the consultant made in the consultation. The board is entrusted with the management of the library. They perform their duties by giving authority to professional library staff whose study is designed to understand collection development and collection management. The board provides policies and relies on the professional expertise of the staff to enforce them. The head librarian has a degree in this specialty. The head librarian is required to have, and I'm telling you this, a certificate of librarianship. I have a certificate of librarianship. That certificate of librarianship requires that I have finished an ALA accredited library program. I completed my program in 1996 at Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey. At the time, Rutgers was ranked 6th in the country for its library program. I have been in the field of librarianship since 1996. I am duly qualified to perform the duties that you have delegated to me. Now I'm going to move on. The staff follow professional standards and guidelines. Next point. Municipal libraries are bound by the First Amendment to represent multiple viewpoints, which is why boards delegate this duty to professionals who understand that. Massachusetts state law. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 78, does not include anything about keeping records of disposed items. So given the consultation from the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, she also highly recommended that I give everyone a copy of, and I'll collect the extras. It's gonna take one to visual. For information, turn to page 7. Page 7 begins the duties and responsibilities of library trustees and or directors and or boards of director members. In general, boards of directors work at the policy level and seek to know how understanding of how well the library is operating. Every month, I present to you how the library is functioning, the use of the library, anything of major import that affects the library and its operations. Boards of directors do not operate at the library operations level. You have hired and negotiated a contract with a professional who performs those duties in collaboration with other professionals who have degrees in library science, who collaborate with other professionally minded members who also may not have library degrees, but have years of experience working in libraries. I understand that the email comes from a place of not understanding library, how libraries work. I ask that you actively confirm the delegation of that work to myself and the library staff as a show that you recognize that what we do well, as is clearly indicated by the continuing growth in use of this library. Since my tenure, it has grown and has continued to rebound, not under my tenure, but under my predecessor's tenure from the COVID downturn. We are ranked 4th in the consortium in overall circulation. If we didn't have a collection that people wanted to use, needed to use, was relevant, no one would come and take out our materials. I can go further and explain from the collection development policy how we select and deselect items. But I ask, based on what I have already presented, do I need to go any further?
From my standpoint, this is a non-issue.
Yeah.
This is a non-issue at all. It's something that we, I believe, as the board, and I'll speak for myself, but I've delegated the responsibility to you and your predecessor and your predecessor's predecessor. I have no library science degree. For me to evaluate, what is chosen to be weeded is a fool's errand. And that's something that I actively have delegated that trust to you and your staff to do. That's one board member's perspective, but I certainly have the utmost faith in you and your staff to have done that the same way that everybody was perceived to have done.
I think the policy makes it very clear that we have delegated that authority to you. If you need us to say tonight that we have delegated that authority to you, oh, fine, but it's just repeating what we've already done numerous times.
Would you like a motion, Kevin? For that?
Yes, for the library staff and myself, I would like a motion from that the board actively reconfirms its delegation and support of the work of the library staff.
Make that motion.
Second.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I guess you have that, Kevin.
Thank you. Okay,
Karen, do you have people from the staff here you can introduce to the board?
yes, actually, I'd like to take this opportunity. Last month you met Ms. Fitzgerald.
Right.
She is here again. I'm gonna say from my left, stage left, is Allison Privatera. Allison Privatera is I'm sorry. Oh. Well, I'm going left. Sorry, stage left is Ms. Allison Privatera. She is the senior librarian for Children's and Youth Services. And to Allison, again, to my left, is Chris McKernan. She is, again, another dedicated member of the borrower services staff. I apologize. You have met also Miss Anna McGrath. She is another dedicated borrower services / children's and youth services, because Anna also delivers baby story time. So I'm pleased to have these staff members here. They are just a fraction of the dedicated professionals that you have working in this building.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
So now we want to go over a librarian report, Kevin.
Yes. Okay. I'm happy to say that I am very close to submitting my FY 26 budget request. The one last kind of major meeting that I will have before the request goes in is a meeting with Ethan Manning. Ethan and I recognize the specialness of the library budget, and there are certain numbers that he and I want to make sure we agree on, such as the municipal allocation requirement and the materials expenditure percentage that the library is required to spend based on its overall budget request. So once we make sure that those numbers, we both agree on those numbers, then I will, put the numbers into the spreadsheets and send them on their way. The instructions that we were given this year was to look at what's called a level service budget. To understand how that works, there are certain things that I cannot keep level. The expenditure for personnel, there are contractual agreements that make it impossible to level it. Whenever there is an obligation that we have that we don't have, that I don't have the control over the amount I ask for. And those include the materials expenditure percentage. That's all based on the total request. And that changes every year, but it is always 13%. I do not have control over, yes, I am on the board of the executive board for the Merrimack Valley Library Consortium. I only have so much influence over how that budget is created, and what we are asked to pay is based on their needs. And so I don't have control over that. And like I said, personnel, I do not have control. The other elements of the budget, like supplies, heating and electricity, I essentially apply inflationary percentages to just allow us to compensate for inflation. So I put all of those numbers together, and then I calculate the materials percentage. This year, I was asked specifically by City Council to not forget the trust funds. So I have the trust fund application request going in at the same time. And what I asked for, plus $9,600 from the trusts, will essentially combine to make our materials expenditures. So I'll put that together, submit that, and then we just continue along with the process that involves a meeting with the mayor to discuss, the budget that I prepared, and then a budgetary meeting with the finance subcommittee of City Council, where, again, they ask questions of how I came up with the budget, and if there are any ways to tweak it, usually down. And then there's the final meeting of City Council, where all of the budgets from the city are taken into consideration. So this is what I've been told. This is a very tight budget year. And I'm submitting as conservatively a budget as I feel is appropriate. Only adjusting for inflation for those things that I cannot control. So right now, it is about a 6.5% increase over last year. But that is true.
That is personnel.
I'd say I would, yes, more than 60% of that increase is caused by personnel. this year, because of the agreement, agreed on by city council, the library staff are getting a much needed salary adjustment to get them up to market, as close to market as we can, or as they could. So that is, the average increase is about 8%. But it's right sizing their salaries to market. As, well, I mean, as close as what the union could get to market. So, they deserve it, they're hardworking. But again, it's the, it's the largest percent of our budget. So, over $1,200,000 of our budget is personnel. And I'm asking for $1.7 million.
The question, Kevin, about the, do you have a line item for the archive? And how big is that out of the entire budget for the library?
The only amount of money that is specifically dedicated to archives is the salary of the archivist. Everything else is integrated, heat and electricity.
But like a materials budget. like we had a
Materials
discussion about.
currently, materials is currently paid for by the Friends. That's supplies and databases. Because of the nature of the archival material, purchases are rare. The majority of items are donated.
Mhm.
So that has been the practice that I've inherited. And it's the practice that is, currently still working. And when it no longer works, then we'll adjust. Yeah.
Any other questions about the budget? Let's go to statistics.
Okay. All right, I submitted to you, the statistical reports and charts. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, I will submit this part of the report as transmitted. I'll move on to personnel. Okay, we had a resignation of a staff librarian in reference. Alexis Laidbush resigned her position on February 19th of this year. Alexis lives in New Hampshire, and a position was available to Portsmouth Public Library. Cutting her commute in half, higher pay. I can't blame her.
No income tax.
No, I mean, she has to file taxes in Massachusetts in order to get the money back. It's, so a lot of, I mean, I can't fault her for going to a position that, like that. So, we acted quickly, because the Newburyport Public Library has a proud tradition of supporting the development of upcoming professionals. We have, well, prior to her transfer and promotion, we had a library technician, Elise Galvanson. She was hired as Elise Jansen. She recently was married and now is Elise Galvanson. Elise started her master's in library science at the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. No. And so that qualifies her, makes her eligible to apply for the position in reference. So I contacted Donna, indicated that we had a potential internal candidate. Donna Drellick then said, well, we will conduct an internal search as if we would conduct any search, beginning with an internal union required search, and then if there is no candidate, we go external. Well, Elise applied for the position. And very excited about the opportunity. We're very excited about Elise being up in reference because she brings with her, I mean, I worked with Elise in my previous job. She worked for me in Boxford while she was also part-time here. So I knew of her work ethic, her, just customer service ethos. So, I mean, coming here, it's kind of nice to see Elise at the circulation desk because I knew how well she worked. So it was a great opportunity for Elise. So we interviewed her, we offered her the position, she accepted, and she began her duties as the newest staff librarian for adult services and reference on February 20th.
So how long before she gets her degree? But
1 year, okay. So she'll be working hard on that. And we're just very glad to have her. And again, continuing the proud tradition of supporting upcoming professionals here. So,
Does that mean there's a technician?
there is. We got Elise's application for transfer in under the wire. There is a city hiring freeze. So, Elise's position currently will be unfilled. So we are working with the staff that we have to make sure that we have appropriate coverage on every evening, every weekend. And we'll be working with HR to make sure that we're following the proper procedures and protocols and having the proper discussions with staff.
Could you advertise it internally and just have a transfer?
We can't. Nope. No. That's-
subs.
We do have a sub. Unfortunately, we can't hire anymore because of the hiring freeze.
Got it.
We had actually begun the process of looking for subs about a month and a half ago. No one wants to work, or no one wants to apply for a $18.50 per hour potentiality of maybe 4 hours a week if we had a whole. Well, we apply, we put it out there. I know as a former substitute, you were very willing. So, yes. We put it out there. Unfortunately, we have a sub. We were unable to, no one applied. So, if no one applies, we can't hire anyone. And now that, freezes in place, we can't hire anyone.
So I'm curious why a transfer in the union within the city isn't in the pipe.
Well, I put in the paper with, oh, yeah, to be last. I put in the paperwork with Donna. And it's stayed there. So, fortunately. That's where we are. We're working to make sure that we maintain a safe level of staff every evening. In a building this size, it would be great to have 6 people here, 2 people for every service floor. We don't have the staff. So the closest we can get is 5.
Could you have a non-volunteer
trustee friend.
No,
Okay,
no, no, unfortunately, no.
just sitting in a chair, okay, with a book as a
You,
patron.
you are more than welcome to sit on the third floor and, but I cannot officially.
Got it. Alright.
Yes. Caroline, if you want to sit there Monday through Thursday every week with a book on the third floor. But I cannot officially
Okay.
give you a name badge or any designation. No. And it's unfortunately where we are at the moment. And we're going to do our best. Unfortunately, it. You know, we'll wait and see what is a result of the budget process. And what we may be asked to do. Knowing, I've only had one instance. In the 10 years that I've been a library director where I had to go through the waiver process. It's not fun. My budget ask is more than the municipal allocation requirement. And even if we level serviced, it would still be more than the municipal allocation requirement. So as long as we maintain and as long as the state will allow a waiver to occur if the library is not the only department that sees that, you know, that significant cut. If it is across the board, they will understand, but the city will have to show the financial difficulties that it's having. That would necessitate that cut across the board. So, that's the fun part of the finance director in order to establish that. And the finance director in Boxford was able to do that, but it was during the pandemic.
Okay, quick question. So Dana alluded to a medical leave. Will there
Yes.
be a replacement option there?
We're going, as we have in the past, we're going to be using reference staff to rotate in. Because Dana is her leave is paid. Can't necessarily hire someone. So we use the staff that we have. And that's why there's been such a great, I mean, the cross training that has occurred here is so, I mean, I've done it in other libraries, and the fact that it was, done here is, it's standard, but it's such a benefit that it has been done and been done to such great extent that pretty much any reference librarian. And I was so pleased at the last department head meeting that every department head said, please, Dana, make sure I am ready to go back down there. There's just that sense that everyone wants to make sure that we're going to be able to provide the same level, as close to the same level of service. It will not be for lack of trying. It will not be for lack of dedication.
Will being down one employee impact your plans with the applicator?
No. We can move on to that, because that's where I was gonna move next. Talk about the elevator project. Unless there are any other questions regarding personnel, because I'll address that. 1, 2, 3, 4. I said, okay, we still have quorum. All right, yep. Just a second. So unless there are any other questions, I'll move on to the building. Okay, the major project that we're is the elevator code compliance repair. Just for an update on the project has been moved back to April, excuse me, not May, sorry, Allison, didn't mean to freak you out there. It was. Allison, as soon as the word May came, I'm like, no, it's April. There was an issue with getting parts, so Embry has pushed the project back to April. The project is still expected to be 4 weeks of actual work on the installation of all the parts and making sure that it's in working order with the new parts, and then there'll be a 4 or 5 day period of testing. And that brings us to about 5 weeks. And the hope is, Embry believes that as they're working through the process, they will be continuing to inform the inspector that where they are, and the inspector will be able to keep a inspection date very close to the end of the testing period. That's the hope. The hope is, but they acknowledge that the whole process could be from 5 to 8 weeks, depending on when the inspector comes to. So.
Is this the local building inspector or?
No, this is an elevator inspector. The city does not have its own certified elevator inspector. This is a state inspector. So, during that time, we've been undergoing a lot of planning, a lot of preparation. I wish I had one of our, how we're planning to do some of our internal operations, because this is the biggest part. Had a meeting with AFSCME union representative, Anna, the head of DPS, Mike Bartlett, the facilities manager, Donna, myself, and Alan, Jessica. Went through the whole kind of understanding of the process and came to an understanding of what is allowable for the union members, both the DPS union members and the library staff union members. And so library staff members are not allowed to carry any bags more than 25 of books more than 25 pounds. And DPS, they're 50. And that 25 pounds comes to about 10 to 12 books. 10 to 12 books, depending on the book, the size of the book. Thankfully, first floor items are not in contention here. So we're talking fiction and nonfiction. Adult fiction and adult nonfiction. So what we did is we actually.
Right. No problem.
Yeah, no problems at all. I'm trying to just be concise. Caroline has experience here and she knows. Okay, so we also are looking to expand outreach, and so I did a purchase that will enable us to have sturdy bags that will be able to carry 10 to 12 adult books. And then later be used for outreach. We should have them before the March meeting, so I will bring a sample. The folks at LL Bean are created or have these bags, and they've been used by the Merrimack Valley Library Consortium for the book club kits. These bags are very sturdy. They have a zipper top, which will be good for outreach. Not really important for us here, but again, thinking ahead to outreach. The nice thing is we're including a little branding on them. The Newburyport Public Library logo will be embroidered on the side. So this is more for the outreach portion. But we have, and we bought two colors. I'm just gonna say for sake of argument, the bag with the blue straps is for the third floor, the bag with the khaki straps is for the second floor. That's how we'll know. So in case we have bags that are just waiting for being picked up, someone knows if there's a blue bag and they're going to the third floor, they grab a blue bag, bring it up to the third floor, put it on the shelving cart. And same thing for second floor. And this is kind of, the agreement was, this is a collaborative effort between the library staff and the DPS staff. And that we expect anywhere, on average, about 12 bags a day to be moved up to the second and third floors. And we'll, you know, if a change of shift or in the morning, the DPS staff member will take whatever bags there are in the morning. Throughout the day, the library staff will bring a bag up here or there at 3 o'clock or later. When the nighttime DPS person is here, they will bring up, you know, whatever's kind of there waiting. So this is like, and volunteers will still be able to engage in shelving. Will not be suspending our volunteer program because they're not carrying bags. All they're doing is books that are brought up in the bags, we put on the shelving carts. The volunteers take the shelving carts and go to wherever they need to go to shelve the books.
Volunteers aren't allowed.
We're being cautious. We wanted to make sure that we did not incur any injuries with our volunteers. The union representation was okay with the staff, you know, as long as it did not exceed 25 pounds. Well, for the library staff, or 50 pounds, you know, 2 bags at a time, for, you know, Craig, John, Cliff, and Nick. We recognize that a very small percentage of our clientele actually use the elevator. But we can't not offer services or offer referrals to places where they can go without barrier. So, to that extent, we've developed a process of, you know, for reference in archives. We still haven't fleshed out if we're going to do anything with regard to printing of materials. Copying, we'll be working on using the copier here on the first floor, just ease of use. Again, the borrower services staff are used to kind of being the first line of, I've got a question about X. If it's more complex, they'll call upstairs, the reference librarian will come down. If it's a question they would normally answer, type of question, they'll just answer the question. If we have someone who is unable to use the elevator and they don't like that we're going to take a flash drive of their material and print it off, we've contacted all of the libraries in the area, got a list of any restrictions they might have in terms of, you know, barriers of access, and laid out all the services they have available. And you know, they were very willing to you know, give us this information so that we could prefer these patrons. I mean, Ipswich, Raleigh, Salisbury, Amesbury, I think West Newbury. I think that's kind of the area libraries we went to. They're all very happy to help out. It's for 5 weeks. You know, it's going to be a little messier the first few weeks. But once we get into the flow of doing these things, it's going to be by the 5th week. Yes, we'll all be very happy the elevator is going to be started, but it's going to be secondhand. People won't be thinking twice about, oh, I'm going to the 3rd floor, I'll grab that. Yeah. We'll get it done. And then we'll have our code compliant elevator with which to, allow people to go back to the second and third floors. And, down to archives. With regards to archives, archives is gonna be open as normal. Those patrons that can use the stairs, go down to archives. Those patron researchers that can't use stairs, we're going to have either the archivist or a staff librarian, whomever is on duty at the time, come up, conduct an interview with that patron researcher. And then we will find a time, because you can't just magically make the materials appear. We want to make sure that we have time to gather all the proper materials, and we're going to have the patron come back to the director's room with the materials, and a staff member will just supervise their use of materials. We'll do that in the director's room. Programming, right in here, all programs will be in this room except those that can be done in third floor conference room or in the director's room. The reason we're having everything in here is because for internal operations, the children's activity room, since it's on the first floor, can do book processing, check-in, all of that in there. The best illustration is when the library during COVID used the children's activity room as its kind of, well, place to, get materials ready to out on the patio. So we're kind of following that model, just adding interlibrary loan and book processing. Because we don't have the elevator. So, but we worked out a process to fit that all in there.
Yeah, but I think that's very thorough. You wanna go into-
Yeah, I'm super sorry. This unfortunately, there's a lot there, so, I think, yeah. I sent you information about our outreach and community partnerships, unless there are any questions. Okay, well, I will submit that section as transmitted. Programming. Sent you information about all of our programs and the attendance. If there are any questions. All right, I will submit that section as transmitted. Last month, starting next month, I'm going to send you the calendar information, so I don't have to go over it. So I'll just focus on what's coming up next month. Next month, we will be having an all-staff meeting to talk about the processes and procedures for the elevator outage, and that will be on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. The library will be closed in the morning, but open from 1 to 9. If there aren't any other questions regarding the calendar, I'm going to just quickly explain. We've had a change in our mission statement project. The board participation, we had our first meeting with Barbara Leveris, and we explained that due to open meeting law, the brainstorming sessions would have to be open meetings with agendas and public attendance. Barbara's first impression was that's going to have a negative impact on the brainstorming process. So what she recommended was having the staff brainstorming be facilitated by her, and I would facilitate the gathering of feedback from you. But we would do it in a way in which you would provide your feedback first. The March meeting, I would take that feedback. It would be the springboard for the brainstorming that would occur with the 4 staff members, Jessica and myself. Then we'd come back to the April meeting with our first drafts. Everyone on the board would be able to review, offer feedback, suggestions, to be integrated in, so for the second brainstorming session that would occur with the staff, integrating the feedback that you give at the meeting, which is open, transparent, members of the public can see. And in the second staff brainstorming session, take that feedback, integrate it in, and come back with 4 potential statements. Your third opportunity to review, tweak if necessary, combine, etc. And come up with your final mission statement based on the, so felt that that was a way in which we were allowing brainstorming to occur with the staff in a non-open meeting environment, but also allow the board in an open meeting environment contribute feedback.
So no matter how many board members were met with.
According to open meeting law, if a board member participates in the crafting of any material or something to be approved by the larger board, it is technically a subcommittee meeting and has to be an open meeting.
So
It could be one member.
when we were working on the strategic plan and the meetings.
It was an open meeting. The SOAR exercise was an open meeting with an agenda, and Walt was present. Yep. Yeah, it's a year ago, it was a while ago, but yes, it had an agenda. It was posted. We had open comment. And then, yeah, I left the meeting at that point because it was your session.
Just seems to me like when we vote on the final thing, yes, it has to be an open meeting, but when you're coming up with all that stuff, I don't get it.
Unfortunately, it's, we've really had to take a look at how we are adhering to open meeting law lately because of the heightened scrutiny on all of the city boards. And this was something that came as a surprise, based on the training that was taken. That the question was posed during the training, actually by Jessica. We have this situation, and they said, yeah, it's a subcommittee.
I tried.
Yes, she tried to see if there was a workaround, but
It's okay, what was your timeline for like a final product?
March will be the initial feedback by the board. April will be the second feedback by the board. May will be the time in which the the 4 kind of choices. So the goal is to have the mission statement approved at the May meeting.
I did have one more item before we get to adjournment. I didn't see Friends of the Library listed any longer, and I was curious, they have a used book sale coming up?
Oh, yes, their sale is coming right at the end of March. They didn't require the use of the elevator, but it's helpful that they're getting their sale right in before the closure of the elevator. And we can have Stacy come at the April meeting to talk about the book sale. I know she wanted to come twice a year. And she can give an update.
Wasn't on the agenda, but there's no update on the investigation.
The city council president has asked us to not discuss an open investigation in a public meeting.
Okay, great. So we'll get a report at some point.
We'll get a report, but I think when everybody else gets a report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah. Other than that, I have nothing further.
Well, we have a motion to adjourn.
So I'm moving.
Okay.
Everybody in favor? Not in favor? Okay. We opposed.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
I thought we weren't trustees.
No, you're.
Right, 'cause there's no press, there's no press.
No, that's why I'm the head librarian,
Yeah.
not a library director, because you're director. It would be super confusing if I was the
Got it.
library director and you were all directors.
Got
Page 7 says something here about human resources.
Me. Hiring me. Yeah.
Ah,
You get to hire me. But then ironically, after that, I'm Donna's.
oh, yeah.
Yes, sir. You can record.
Sorry, I'm still.